everyone. Welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football Waiver Wire Show. I am Nate Polvogt, joined by my co-host, Mike Reedy. Guys, it's week 4 of NFL action. We're through 3 absolutely freaking brutal weeks, Mike. Injuries, we've got new ones who popped up this week. Trey McBride, Devonta Smith, both in concussion protocol. Justin Herbert ends up getting replaced by Taylor Heineke yesterday. We don't know what his timetable is. We hear low ankle sprain. Could be day-to-day, could be week-to-week. So now we're left with this just absolute mess of a situation. And as fantasy managers, it's hard to see any real hope. Sam Laporta, another one who turned up on the injury report with an ankle sprain as well. These guys that we were taking super high in our drafts, Trey McBride, Christian McCaffrey now is seeing a specialist in Germany for that Achilles strain. It's getting harder and harder to put together a team every week, which fortunately it is for literally every manager in your league. But now it's who wins the waiver wire every week, because we're streaming. If you're a Jordan Love manager, you're streaming quarterbacks right now, right?
I know.
You almost have to be.
I pretty much have been.
Yeah.
I have Jordan Love roster on a couple of teams, and that's
same.
Been very painful.
Yeah. I had to make a trade for Justin Fields in my home league because Tua and Jordan Love are my quarterbacks. So yeah, not pretty. Mike, let's go ahead and get to it with these waiver wire players that we like this week. We're going to start with quarterbacks. The first one on the list is Sam Darnold, who I don't know what he has to do, Mike, to prove to everyone what is enough. The guy just goes out and does it every week. He's still only 16.3% rostered in ESPN leagues. What's going on?
People think of him as a sucky quarterback. That's what's going on. They don't want to believe. With this is what's weird. You would think recency bias would come into play. And a guy who's, 181 yards and 4 TDs this week. If he's not a mass ad this week, he's never going to be a mass ad, which isn't bad if you like to just add guys a day after waiver runs. And a lot, right? But
all the time.
I called him out last week. I actually called him out in my weekend waiver stash article too, as somebody you want to add, right? He played the team that gave up the 8th most fantasy points of quarterbacks this past week. It was a good matchup, but he's doing this against bad matchups, and he's spreading the ball around. It's not like he's just feeding Justin Jefferson.
Right.
He's spreading the ball around. He looks really comfortable. They have the best defense in the league for fantasy purposes anyways. Minnesota does. Great landing spot for him. I thought they'd miss Kirk Cousins a little. It looks like they upgraded.
You're right. It really does look like they upgraded. Darnold was good against San Francisco, who, their defense has been not as good as expected this season, but they've still been good. Houston is a defense we're targeting as a streamer this week, and he put up 30 fantasy points against them last week. He's QB2.
Overall.
Yeah. Overall, behind Lamar Jackson. He's
That's
just
great.
ahead of Baker Mayfield, but he's ahead of everybody else.
I'm going to add him myself. If I have a need, I'm adding him myself. It's
the problem with playing in some of the leagues that we play in, Mike, with the analysts, is that he's been gone.
He's already gone.
He's been long gone. And the problem with my home leagues is that they actually started listening to my content this season, and he has been long gone.
Well, we were talking about him in the preseason. After week 2, somebody said, did anybody think Sam Darnold would be any good? No one thought. And I'm like, well, actually, I said something like, well, I did. And somebody asked why. And they wanted the stats from what I mentioned why was his first 4 weeks when he was with Carolina. So I shared the stats. He was just as good then till he hurt his shoulder. So it's opportunity knocked, right? And he's producing.
Well, he has the weapons. Justin Jefferson, but Jalen Naylor has been really good. Aaron Jones has been lights out. We got a comment in the chat by Jacob Galbraith. Jacob, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. He wants to know, what about Justin Fields? And he makes a valid point. In ESPN right now, he's only rostered in 24.1% of leagues. I would be a little bit more trepidatious about adding someone like Justin Fields if Pittsburgh wasn't winning. The thing is this team is winning. You're not going to bench Justin Fields. It's working, right? Like Russell Wilson lost his starting job. And I think we can pretty confidently say that until Justin Fields is real bad,
He's not, though. He's managing this game incredibly well. I actually didn't like how I felt he got shafted in Chicago, by the way. I didn't think he played poorly while he was there. He's playing mistake-free football. He's only averaging 12 fantasy points, though, a week. If Najee and Warren miss time, it looks like Warren's going to miss time.
Najee was in a sling.
He's supposed to play, though. Before this, if they miss time, he may have to run the ball some more, and then the stats will go up. But we can't say right now. And they're going to keep him managing the game, and you're looking at like what 12 to 15 fantasy points a week tops.
He 11.9 week 1, 11.4 week 2, 19.4 this week. So he's 14.2 per game, QB 16 right now. So, in 2 QB leagues, if you're dealing with an injured player, fine, take him. In 1 QB leagues, there's no reason you should be looking to roster Justin Fields right now, unless you are desperate. I have some leagues where I am that desperate, but that's not the rule here, right? Now, Malik Willis, this is an interesting one, but I'm for it. I liked Malik Willis coming out of Liberty. I thought he should have gone a little bit higher. Now you're seeing him in an offense where they're just asking him to do what he does well, not throw a ton, but he was 13-19 against Tennessee, had 202 yards and a touchdown, but then the rushing upside that he brings, 6 carries, 73 yards and a touchdown. We don't know how long Jordan Love is out.
Coaching matters. The coaches are using Malik Willis in a way that he can produce. He didn't get that kind of opportunity in Tennessee. I think they wanted him to be Ryan Tannehill, and he isn't. Wow. Right? That's all I thought was wow. And he spread the ball around nice as well, right? Like he played really, really well. I like him. I always say coaching matters. Coaching matters a lot here. Again, another guy in a different spot, which is apparently the right spot while we wait for Jordan Love to come back.
Yep.
If you're needy, you can't go wrong.
Okay, but more of a football question than a fantasy football question. If you're the Tennessee Titans and you just watched a guy that you traded for peanuts outplay the guy that you drafted in the second round of the draft 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago now, how does that make you feel?
Different coaching staff, though, and he wasn't getting used properly.
That's fair.
So sometimes guys don't mature in time, though, either, right? Like we expect these guys to walk into the league and be superstars right away. And look at Geno Smith.
Yeah. But also look at the teams. He was on those Jets teams that were absolutely hapless. So, but yeah, I get your point.
It takes guys a few years, right? The game's fast. I'm not a huge Caleb Williams guy, but the game's a lot faster than college. Mm-hmm. He's adjusting. He had a better defense to play against this week than the first 2 weeks, right? But it takes some time for some guys to adapt. Not everybody is CJ Stroud, who walks in and was like, everything's the same.
Yeah, right. Hey, speaking of quarterbacks who just didn't hack it, Bryce Young apparently. I don't think we see him again in Carolina. That's my opinion. Andy Dalton steps in last week, Mike, and what does he do? 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. The first quarterback in the NFL to do that this season. That's right, folks. Andy Dalton, the pale squirt gun.
It makes you feel like he should have been starting all this time somewhere anyways, even though he's been a backup since he left the Bengals. We mentioned in the offseason that they did a lot of the right things in Carolina. And we thought this should help Bryce Young, and it didn't. He's just not good.
Right.
They added Deontay Johnson. They drafted Jonathan Brooks. And Chuba Hubbard's playing great, by the way. He did last season, too. Towards the end of the year, he was playing really well. They helped fix the offensive line some. It just didn't help. I think he's too short, and he's just not accurate with his passes. The combination of you can't see and you don't throw well anyways is tough.
Right.
In the NFL. Oh my God. If I added Deontay Johnson off the waiver wire on Friday in a league where somebody had dropped him last week. And I was like, yay, Andy Dalton, I'm playing him right away. I've had people think I was nuts, and I was like, oh, no.
No.
It's very different now.
Andy Dalton is a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback, but he's also not a mediocre quarterback. He's a good quarterback.
He's a second tier, like QB2 type of guy, right?
Exactly.
Still, even as an old guy, still.
Yeah, which I would still say is a good quarterback. Yeah, he's 36. So that old son of a bitch. But yeah, I mean, 30.56 points last week. He played very well. You should probably go out because people are going to continue to be like, oh, yeah, it was one game. No, he should have been starting last season. He should have started week 1 last season. And I said this going into last season that Bryce Young, some guys are ready. Obviously, CJ Stroud was. I still don't think Trevor Lawrence was. And Bryce Young certainly was not ready to be thrust into a starter's role, and especially in an offense as suspect as it was the day he stepped on the field. Their line was bad. They had no real weapons. I mean, we're talking Terrace Marshall and Josh Downs here, or Jonathan Mingo. Like, what are we doing to this kid? And now you've got the veteran in, and you see this offense is better than it was last season. But I think we're having a different conversation about Bryce Young this year if they had let Dalton start last year.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the being a Boston guy, the Patriots, people complaining about Drake May. They wanted him to start. Now they don't want to ever see him hit the field because they know how bad the offensive line is. Yeah, I didn't want to see him start. I didn't think the kid was ready. Bryce Young clearly was not ready. Will he get another shot? Maybe.
I could see him. He'll land as a backup somewhere. He'll need an injury. I'd see a Mariota type arc where it's like, oh my God, he was really good for 3 games. Well, yeah, but game 4 is not going to be great, Case Keenum. I want to get to the chat here real quick. Like, we've got Peyton Gentry asking Jags wide receivers. I have Brian Thomas and Kirk in a Dynasty Superflex half PPR. Dynasty, I'm okay holding Thomas, maybe not so much Kirk, but also I don't know how much you're going to get for him on the market right now. With this Jacksonville offense floundering, I don't think there's a lot of value. But I would hold Thomas because if this offense can turn things around, if they can get Trevor Lawrence going, or if they move on from Trevor Lawrence at some point in the next season to 2, there's a new ceiling for Brian Thomas, and it's a wide receiver 1-tier player. I really do believe that. I think he's the best receiver out of LSU.
He looks very good to be honest. He's not playing poorly. He's playing very well.
No, he gets it. He's just in an offense that can't support what he's trying to do right now.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And Richard Sickles in the chat. Dick, thanks for tuning in. Guys, if you're wanting to learn more about fantasy football, check out our Fantasy 101 series that Dick is writing for Optimus. It's awesome. It's got all the terms you need to know. It explains scoring, teaches you how to set up a league. So head on over to optimusfantasy.com and give that a look. We got Jamie Parag saying, what is up, guys? Jamie, always good to see you. Jamie wants to know, are you picking up that Bears running back? Some guy named R. Johnson. We will get to that, Jamie. You know how I stand. If you read my article, you would know where I'm standing on this specific player this week, but we'll get there. Now, the last quarterback I want to talk about, Mike, Bo Nix. I did not in a million years think that in week 4 of 2024, I would be saying, maybe we need to think about adding Bo Nix in 2 QB leagues. But he's getting better every week. And he's not going to be, I cannot see him having a top 12 fantasy finish unless he does it with his legs. Well, that's against a bad defense.
After the preseason, we thought he was going to be better than he's played. And it's only been 3 weeks. I mean, people are really harsh. We flipped the switch so fast saying somebody's horrible because they have the first couple of weeks are pretty tough. He's spreading the ball around too pretty well there, right? Like I'm seeing people wanting to add Denver wide receivers. I wish he could get the ball to Courtland Sutton. But other than that, I think he played pretty well this week, and at least watch. I would put him on a watch at least. If I didn't want to, depends on how needy you are, right? Saying a GPD league or a super flex.
When I'm looking at Nix, my thought in adding him here is that he's widely available on ESPN. Let me double check. His rostership is real low. He is sitting at Yeah, he's at 7.8%. More than Andy Dalton at 1.4, but less than a lot of guys that you're just not going to be able to get. If Sean Payton leans into this rushing upside we're seeing from him, he has 2 rushing touchdowns, maybe keep the ball out of the air a little bit more because he's got the 4 picks. I can see where he becomes like Justin Fields valuable that rookie season, where it was like, I mean, he's not great, but this dude runs all over the place. So he's getting you 15 to 20 PPR points or 15 to 20 points some weeks just on the ground because the offense isn't doing much else well. And this Denver offense isn't doing much else well. I mean, Javonte Williams has been almost a non-factor.
He's been horrible.
He's been
I
horrible.
expected so much more from him. And they appear to like Jaleel McLaughlin because they give him the ball on the goal line, which was a surprise.
Yeah. I didn't see that thing, but I don't know, man. Look, I got one more question in the chat here, and then we're going to move on to running backs, Mike. Jason Quinn wants to know, should I add Heineke in 2 QB leagues? He's got Lamar, Purdy, and Herbert with IR spots to use. I don't know. I like Taylor Heineke, Mike. I do. I love the story. I love the grit of him staying around and sticking around in this league. However, for fantasy purposes, we're already in an offense where we're questioning Justin Herbert's value, and we know the level of talent in Justin Herbert. I can't see him being fantasy relevant because Jim Harbaugh is smarter than that. He's not going to put the ball in Heineke's hands to lose games. They're just going to put it in Dobbins' hands, and they're going to have Heineke run a little bit.
Gus Bus and Dobbins will get even more carries.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see it. And not that Heineke's bad, not that he hasn't produced fantasy points before.
Right.
He has. But this offense was built to run and throw sporadically, not throw. They're going to run even more. So you're going to be looking for just touchdown upside, and if you don't get it, you're not going to get production.
And you're probably not going to get it from Taylor Heineke. So Mark Folkman in the chat asking, he says he's thinking about picking up Sam Darnold off of waivers to start over AR5 this week. What do we think? Here's the thing with Anthony Richardson for me is that, yeah, he's erratic. And that's just his style of play. He's an all or nothing type start. But I'm going to go for the all every week.
Well, it depends on how your team build is, though, too. For me,
that's a fair point.
Right. So if your team build is one where you're a lot of high floor players and you have mixing in a boom bust type of guy, I think you want AR5 in there. If your team build is one where you have some more boomy bust type of players somewhere else and you might want some stability, I think Sam Darnold's probably a safer play. Like, I think you're going to get consistency out of Darnold where you won't get that ceiling you can get with Richardson.
So I will say, now that I'm looking at the schedule, Indy gets Pittsburgh this week. So this would be a week where, actually, I would grab Darnold and I'd pivot to Darnold over Richardson. I think it makes the most sense. Chaga in the chat wants to know, Mike, should I trade Amari Cooper for Jaden Daniels? 3 wide receiver redraft PPR. His other wide receivers are Garrett, Neighbors, Devonta Smith, Cooper Kupp, Deontay Johnson, Ladd McConkey, and Keon Coleman. He also has Jordan Love, so he's been streaming quarterbacks. I would.
I would too. You do have some injury concerns there at wide receiver right now, though. Smith got dinged up. Kupp's out. Right. But I think you're safe because you can go Garrett, Neighbors, and Deontay at a minimum, right? So,
at a minimum.
If you need a quarterback, why not? He's got the running upside. He basically had his breakout throwing game this week. People are super excited about that. I don't know what to expect from Amari Cooper every week. I expected more through the first 3 games. So, I don't know. If so, I would flip him for Daniels if I could. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Cooper was great last week against the Giants, but that's not saying that much. They've got Vegas, Washington, and Philly the next 3 games on the road. And yeah, Philly's defense hasn't been great, but they're not
this week.
They were this week, and none of these defenses are nearly as bad as the Giants. I like Amari Cooper. I don't like this situation.
I don't like his quarterback anymore at all. He's just not producing.
No. Chuck also wants to know, what about trading? I'm assuming we're talking Zach Moss here and Cooper for AJ Brown. I'd make that deal. I know Moss had some PPR upside this week. Cool. He's not that good, man. And Chase Brown will eventually take over most of the reps in this offense. He had the big chunk run plays last night. When they needed someone to get yards, it was Chase Brown for 10, Chase Brown for 16, Chase Brown for 6, first down for Chase Brown. And then Zach Moss up the middle for no gain. And that's what I see. So yeah, move Moss.
I would be more than willing to do that to get AJ Brown. Again, much higher ceiling. He has a higher floor too than either one of those guys. I like to get the single guy. And watch out, Chaka, the Slee Stack are coming. If you're old enough to know what that show is, obviously Chaka is.
You would assume. All right, Mike, let's move on to some waiver wire running backs. We'll get through these guys a little bit quicker because I think these are a little bit easier to explain. We're going to start with Bucky Irving in Tampa Bay. Plain and simple, Todd Bowles said he's the guy. They love what they see. He just has earned more work. You're going to see a lot more Bucky Irving. 32% rostered on ESPN. So go get Bucky Irving, but are we looking to move or drop Rachaad White at this point?
Yeah. You have Bucky Irving with 7.8 yards per carry this week. And I don't even want to think about what Rachaad White had. It was like maybe 2.1 or something like that. Bucky Irving's going to get more touches. He just keeps earning them. He's out producing. His playing time's going to go up. I would get him now if you can. I already have him rostered on a bunch of teams myself where I had him on the bench just waiting. So it's, I think it's a good ad.
Well, yeah, 7.78 yards per carry. Caught all 3 of his targets. He's clearly getting more work. 32% of snaps, which isn't.
Yeah.
But that'll bump up. I'm not worried about it with Bucky Irving. The next one on the list, I love Braylon Allen of the Jets, the youngest player in the NFL, getting tutties from the oldest player in the NFL. Who doesn't love it?
He doesn't have a lot of snaps either, by the way.
No.
Percentage-wise.
32% last week.
Yeah, but if he's on the field, they're using him, right? So he had 14 total touches, 55 yards rushing, 33 yards receiving. It appears that Aaron Rodgers trusts him as well because he throws the ball to the rookie, which is amazing. I was listening to SiriusXM radio earlier, and they were talking about it looked like the Jets didn't even really need him, but they figured this guy's really good. Let's draft him anyways since he's there. Yeah, they did. I mean, great move. Yeah. He looks like he's going to be totaling over 60 yards a week. Especially if he's getting that 12 to 15 touches, and that's with only 32% snap share. I have him. He's another guy I added last week, by the way. After waivers processed, I went out and added him on a lot of teams. I have him very high up there. After Bucky, I would go Braylon, and then the next guy would be the guy I would take after that as well.
Well, the next guy is Alexander Madison, which I'm on board with this. I think the change of scenery to Vegas was good for him. Real quick, I just want to say my one thing with Braylon Allen is I just love the talent, and I think he's a guy you should go roster. Plain and simple. I know people might be a little bit scared off of he's in an offense with Breece Hall.
He is.
I'm going to say the same thing I say every week. This is a 2 running back league.
He's more of a flex play, but he's not hurting,
which is
he's not hurting Hall's value at all either. They're coexisting perfectly fine.
Yep. Get to this running back question in the chat here. Nino Pena wants to know, Mike, Pollard for Deontay Johnson? No.
With Thielen out, definitely no. But I mean, the thing is, do you need the wide receiver, right? And are you stacked at running back? Or are you saying someone wants to give you Pollard for Deontay Johnson? This is team needs trump everything else sometimes, right? So if you need a starter, make the move. If this is like I don't need it, don't make the move.
Yeah, don't just make the trade to make the trade. Jason Quinn popping back in, Mike, with another question here. He's considering dropping Zamir White. How would you rank these guys? Juwan Jennings, Darnell Mooney, Justice Hill, Chase Brown, Alexander Madison, McLaughlin, Roshan Johnson, all in half PPR. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Jason. Jennings, Mooney. It starts to get tough after that. I'd probably say Madison. Then like McLaughlin, Johnson, and Chase Brown. I probably have all those guys equal. Hill's only going to get a lot of use if they need to throw the ball a lot for the Ravens, so he would be at the very end for me.
Which we've seen. We were excited about him, and kind of it's okay.
He's good. It's unfair, but play calling matters, right? So.
Yeah. I think I'm Jennings, Mooney at the top there, and same as you. I do like Roshan Johnson though.
Oh, me too.
With DeAndre Swift being inefficient. There you go, Jamie. We talked about Roshan Johnson. I hope you're happy.
Inefficient is a nice way of putting bad.
1.8 yards per carry so far this year for DeAndre Swift. Miggy wants to know, I have CD and Ayuk. I need to trade one because I have no good running backs. Any thoughts on what I should do? So I'm trading Ayuk.
Me too.
Try and get it back. And I don't know. I keep waiting for Ayuk to get that big game. Got paid a lot of money. A lot of stink was made about it. We're 3 weeks in. This offense needs someone to catch the ball.
I mean,
apparently it's Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings was wide open, single coverage
all
wide
the
open.
time.
So Ayuk's getting double teamed. The other thing there is Jennings has earned snaps. So when Debo and Kittle and CMC are all back, Jennings is going to continue to see targets.
Yep.
So like it's going to be diluted. I know people don't want to believe too many mouths to feed is real. It's real.
It's very real.
And there'll be too many mouths to feed there. And I hate to tell you this, but the pecking order is going to be in the passing game, CMC, Debo, everyone else. That's just how it works on that team.
Yeah. Oh, I don't care how well some of these bit guys played. We're going to talk about another San Francisco part here later in the show, but they're valuable until these other guys come back. This is This is a Kyle Shanahan offense. These are the guys that he has chosen to ride with for the last 3-4 seasons. Yeah, but ride the value while you can. Well, these guys are out.
And how about that Brock Purdy? That's all I want to say. I've loved him since he started playing well. Everybody picks on him. He played great with missing 3 superstars.
Yeah, I watched him play just a tad bit when he was at Iowa State. I thought he was pretty good there too. So I wasn't terribly surprised to see him succeed. Nino says, yes, his running backs are Kamara Connor, Braylon Allen, Zamir, and Jonathan Brooks, who can help a bit getting Tony Pollard. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you need to get someone like Tony Pollard, as much as I don't like him, he's going to provide consistent value. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, the ceiling's not there. But
not like it used to be. Nope, he's getting too old. Miggy says here he's trying to trade Ayuk. He is 0-3 right now, so he needs something big to happen. I feel that, but definitely don't trade CeeDee Lamb. He will help you get out of that 0-3 hole. Brandon Ayuk is not going to be that kind of help. Now we've got a fun comment over here on Twitch. Let me get to this here if my computer will allow it. I just got a new one. Working through some quirks here. Neil, the legend on Twitch asking, can I drop Jerome Ford for Bucky Irving? Absolutely.
Yeah. That's already a timeshare for Ford. And eventually Chubb's going to come back and it's just going to get murkier. Bucky looks like he's going to take over that backfield in Tampa. Yeah. I mean, if we want to believe what the coach says.
Coach speak. Good old coach speak. All right, let's move on to some more of these running backs. Alexander Madison is a guy, Mike, we've talked about him a number of times. He's in this Vegas offense with Zamir White, who really isn't that good of a running back. I'm going to stop telling people to take a chance on him because I don't think there's a chance to be taken. Madison, on the other hand, I really like.
Well, we had him as a DFS play this week as well. He scored a touchdown. He's the goal line back right now and the receiving back. And, I mean, Zamir White, if he gets volume, he'll give you numbers like anybody else in the NFL. If he's not getting the volume, and the team, I mean, they're okay. They're not great.
Yeah.
If he's
They're
not
not as
getting the
bad as they
goal,
were last year.
no, but if he's not getting the goal line touches, and we know he's not a pass catching back, there's no upside there,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the floor's really low and the ceiling's really low. I'm Madison here. The ceiling's much higher. I mean, very limited touches, but he did play 44% of the snaps, which led all Raiders running backs this week. That's Alexander Madison did, even though he only had a few touches. So he's somebody we're going to see an upswing on, I think, in usage as well, just because Zamir White's very ineffective, is the word Nate used. Jaleel McLaughlin had a TD as well, used as a goal line back for Denver. I moved on to Jaleel McLaughlin because I saw you fixing your headset there, Nate, if you can hear me. He only had a couple of touches as well, 7 yards and a TD, one catch for 7 yards. But Jaleel McLaughlin's going to surpass Javonte Williams here. It looks like the coaching staff trusts McLaughlin more. To give him that goal line carry was just shocking to me. I know it was shocking to Nate as well. We were talking about that before joining the pod. Just surprised. It looks like he's going to surpass.
I'm back.
Point. Yeah, I see you're back. I just kept talking. I'm good at it.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. My headphones cut out, which is definitely very strange. Not something I was planning on happening. But I am back. Not quite sure where you were here. I know you were talking about Madison, I believe.
And then I moved on to McLaughlin.
Perfect.
I mentioned how Madison led the team in snaps. Led the team in snaps, running back snaps this week. He's going to start getting more and more usage. He's just going to be the guy on the field.
Well, the thing about the Broncos offense that I mentioned earlier, and this is why I kind of like Bo Nix's rushing upside, is they've got to stop throwing the ball. It's just not going well for this team. Nix's 4 interceptions, you can't ignore that, right? So, guy like McLaughlin, 5 carries for 7 yards, but he got the touchdown. And that's what matters, is he's getting that red zone usage, like you pointed out. And yeah, that's important. T-Money in the chat real quick. He says he's got a trade question. T-Money, drop that in here, and we will get to it as soon as we can here. Just didn't want to leave you hanging. Emmanuel Wilson, Green Bay Packers, you've got on this list. 12 carries for 50 yards last week. Still hasn't scored. Nope, take that back. He had that receiving touchdown.
He did.
16 fantasy points last week.
41% of the snap share as well.
Exactly. I think this is a guy who's kind of carved out a role in this offense. And I don't know that I'm worried about him losing too much of it moving forward.
And out of all the running backs we're talking about, he's only 2% rostered on ESPN. Which, if you're looking for someone who's available because you're in need, and I mean, I'm not looking for him to become a top 10 guy anytime soon, right? Like they were probably resting Josh Jacobs some. They're going to continue to try to manage his touches, I would think, because last season he had just had 364 or 5 touches the year before, and you could tell he was worn down, right? So they're going to try to manage his touches. I think people were hoping Lloyd would be a guy that would be producing like this, but Eric Wilson, Emmanuel Wilson, sorry, I don't know why I want to call him Eric, is Adam if you need a running back, right? Like you may not want to play him right away. You might want to see what's going on, but he's available. He's everywhere.
And he's RB33 right now.
Yeah. Usable. And available.
Absolutely usable. Jamie in the chat wants to know, Madison or Roschon? We all know Roschon's more talented. Yes, that is true. Though I would be more worried about the opportunity for Roschon. I need to see more of it. Last week was encouraging.
And they could always go back to Herbert or Swift because
which wouldn't surprise me.
They like having that 3-headed committee there. So I would go Madison over Roschon as well.
I would as well. Patrick wants to know, Mike, drop Javonte for Xavier Leggett or Roschon in PPR. He's 3-0. He's got Bucky Irving, Rico Dowdle, and Chase Brown.
Roschon, maybe. Leggett, no.
Yeah, same. I wanted Xavier Leggett to be a little bit more. Loved watching him in college. Maybe he'll get more opportunity, but he's in Carolina, so it's hard to say. Christian Reyes just got King Henry and Jaden Reed for Brees. Is that a good trade? In redraft, yeah, I think so.
Be better once Jordan Love's back, but yes.
Yeah. Playoff time. That'll be a really good trade for you. T-Money dropping his trade question in here, Mike. Should I trade JMO and Ford and Worthy for DJ Moore and Alec Pierce? His wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, DK Metcalf, JMO, Worthy, Mooney. His running backs are Connor, Jacobs, and then Brooks on IR. Should I trade Kincaid for K9 and play Komet?
Ooh, I'm keeping Kincaid.
Yeah, same.
And I mean, it's almost a wash on that other trade, by the way. Pierce is probably going to outproduce Worthy this year, not because he's more talented, but just because the looks he gets works well with what he does, right? Four targets a game or something like that. He's turning that into 50, 60 yards and potentially a touchdown. Worthy getting 4 or 5 touches a game tops isn't going to help you. Ford probably isn't going to help you. And I mean, JMO and DJ Moore, I'd rather have JMO, I think, this season because of Chicago's offense. But week 3 was good for DJ Moore, and the schedule's pretty easy for the next 5 or 6 games. So, yeah, I'd probably make this trade. I don't think you're losing all that much. If it's Dynasty, I wouldn't do it because I'd want to hold on to Worthy and JMO. But redraft, I'm doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, the big piece for me is Ford. I'd love to dump that value in redraft right now, just because I just don't. We took him higher than he should have been being drafted, right? So if you can get DJ Moore and Alec Pierce back, and Alec Pierce, for better or worse, especially for Michael Pittman owners, he's the guy in Indy. He's the guy that Anthony Richardson loves. So the volume of Moore and Pierce for me, I think just it's too much to pass up, and being able to dump Ford. And again, where these 4 touches a game isn't going to do much for you down the line.
No, super talented, and that's why I'm like, it hurts, right? You're thinking like, he's so good, but he doesn't touch the ball enough to make a difference. So
it's like Marvin Mims. We know Marvin Mims can take the top off a defense. They just don't do it. So much as we want it to happen, you can't really roster Marvin Mims right now either. Quincy Davis asking, do I drop Carson Steele for Braylon Allen? And do I drop Quentin Johnson for Mooney? I am going to say yes, Steele for Braylon Allen.
You're not a believer in Steele?
I believe in his hair, and I believe that a really big deal was made about his sister's wedding this weekend.
He looked very average to me.
Yeah,
I'd rather have Allen.
Yeah, I'd much rather have Allen. Long-term, rest of season, dynasty, doesn't matter. I want Allen. Then Johnson for Mooney. Yeah, I think I would, Mike. Mooney seems to be a favorite target of Kirk Cousins, and that means something in Atlanta.
My good friend, Chris Robin, right? He's over at Fantasy Six Pack. Shout out to Chris, right? He jumped on here, I think, our very first pod together.
Yeah.
Chris had gone back and forth with somebody over Mooney, and he said, you need to understand Mooney very well can be the number 1 wide receiver week to week on this Atlanta team. He can outproduce London any given week. He's definitely the second option there. I made fun of Cousins a little bit, right? Saying Darnold was an upgrade, but Cousins is a good quarterback. Mooney, I like Mooney's situation better than Quentin Johnson's situation. So yes, I'd make that deal too. I think he's going to outproduce Johnson overall in the season. Johnson needs a touchdown. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he's valueless.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Everyone, I want you to know we do see your questions in the chat, but I do want to get on to our waiver wide receivers before it gets too late and waiver claims have already been processed. Just kidding, obviously. We're not going to be on that long, but let's get to these wide
here.
Yeah, right. So here we are. These are our week 4 wide receivers we think you should be targeting. We've got Quentin Johnston of the Los Angeles Chargers, Jalen Tolbert of the Dallas Cowboys, Juwan Jennings of the San Francisco 49ers, Andre Yosavash of the Cincinnati Bengals, Jalen Naylor of the Vikings, and Trey Tucker. Let's talk about Quentin Johnston. He didn't quite get it last year.
He gets touchdowns. He didn't know what was happening last year. I'd like to know the status of Justin Herbert a little more. But he only had 2 targets this week, 2 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. So he does produce with his touches. Mooney's not here, by the way, because he's rostered on like 67% of teams. Quentin Johnston's available. So if you're needy, I don't think he's as good as the guy we were saying I would trade him for or drop him for. If you're needy at wide receiver, you have a chance with Johnston that he's going to give you some production every week. Looks like it's 10 to 12 points, but there's production there, right?
Yeah. Same thing with Jalen Tolbert, Mike. Just looking over kind of what he's done the last 2 weeks, 9 targets and 5 targets, respectively, the last 2 weeks. He's been in the double-digit fantasy points. I didn't think we were going to get a second receiver, or third, I guess at this point, a third receiver to emerge from this Cowboys offense. But I think Tolbert's showing he is going to be a part, and his floor is probably double-digit points at this point.
He's playing a lot. That was the key. When I brought him up last time and you were like, what? I'm like, he played like 85% of the snaps that game. He played 75% of the snaps this week. He had another touchdown, another 42 yards. He's a secondary option, it looks like, behind Lamb in the passing attack. He's emerging. The time to add him is probably now before everybody else is hot for him, although his rostership's a little higher than I thought it would be.
6.4%.
I thought it was going to be almost 0, right? But this is one of the guys, like, I have friends who read my waiver wire article and follow me on waivers all the time. This is a guy we're identifying early. Get him early. Don't wait till everybody wants him in another week or two. Like, I would get him now.
Yeah. No, I agree. We've got a comment in the chat here from Neil the Legend. He's saying he's rostered in 1% of ESPN leagues. Let me take a look at this here, but I am almost positive we are right in that 6%. Yeah, he's right now. He is currently 6.4% right this very second. Neil, I promise we keep you with the most up-to-date information on that. So I just wanted to clear that out in the air here. Now, Jawan Jennings, I don't think we have to really say much about this other than be prepared to drop a lot of your fab to get Jawan Jennings this week.
And once everybody's back, be prepared for his production to tail off. I mean, everybody's going to bid on him. He's the number 1 claim after 12 targets, 11 receptions, 175 yards, 3 touchdowns, 40% target share. Yeah, you have to pay attention to that. But remember, 3 superstars are out of that lineup right now, and he may not see this kind of production when they're back. That's all.
No, he definitely won't. I mean, 5 targets, 4 targets, that's within the reasonable realm, which week 1 against the Jets with everyone mostly healthy outside of Christian McCaffrey, double-digit fantasy points. So, but that said, this week 3 was a one-time thing for Jennings, guys. He's not going to get this kind of volume next week. This was Kittle was ruled out last minute.
Yeah.
Oh crap! What are we gonna do? Hey, Jawan, you're gonna be a little bit more involved in this game plan than we thought this week.
That's what made him a good ad, was the Kittle being out, right?
Yep.
You may not have seen this if Kittle was in the lineup, so we don't know because that's not what happened, but he's less likely to see that massive volume. I mean, that was massive volume.
That's for a guy like him. Yes, that's massive volume. Now, I told my wife Jen before the show that I had a new nickname for you.
Yoshi?
No, the world's biggest Andre Yosivach stan. Because you are. And then we heard him catch the touchdown last night, and I was like, Mike's gonna be so happy.
I went away from him even after the 2 touchdown week because it was only 2 targets. And I'm like, I can't believe they're not using him like they were last year when he played. But 7 targets, 5 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown this week. He had 18% target share and 77% of the snaps, which is second on the team behind Jamar Chase, which surprised me. So that's why I'm back on the train here, right? Like, I like him because Burrow trusts him in the red zone. But I don't like him if he's only seeing 2 targets. I don't even care if he's scoring a touchdown every week on 2 targets. It's the the floor is too low. But if he's seeing 7, 5, 6, 7 targets a week, I like him. He becomes a very playable asset for you, and then he has the upside with potential touchdowns.
Well, in the next 3 matchups for the Bengals, a team that really they desperately need a win here. Carolina at home. They're at Carolina, Baltimore at home, on the road for the Giants. Then they've got Cleveland, Philly, Las Vegas after that. These are all situations where I could see him maintaining that 5 to 7 target range volume.
Yeah. I'm not looking him to become Jamar Chase. I'm looking him to be that complementary piece. And Burrow, as I said, Burrow apparently trusts him in the red zone because he has 3 touchdowns in 2 games. So,
yeah, exactly. Now, Jalen Naylor, the Jordan Addison fill-in in Minnesota, had another touchdown last week.
One in every game.
Is this kid for real? And do you feel like this is someone that, like, long term is going to have fantasy values like a flex play in this Minnesota offense?
Well, he's playing 86% of the snaps. He had a 14% target share this week on that 4 targets. So it seems like it's not a lot, but it's fairly significant piece of the target share. 3 receptions, 54 yards, and another touchdown. So Darnold clearly trusts him as well, right? Because he's getting him the ball in a place where he can score. When Addison's back, we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't go crazy on Jalen Naylor. I've played him in numerous spots this week because I am very wide receiver needy on a few teams where I have injuries just destroying me. And I was like, thank God, Jalen Naylor. I love you, kid. I needed that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he'll maintain it when Addison's back. Addison's really good. That team's gonna be good as this
team
year
is going to
goes
be
on.
very
They're just
good.
gonna get better.
I'm with you. Once Addison is back, forget about Jalen Naylor. But for now, he's going to provide value in your roster. We're all hurting for wide receivers, right? And my Thursday co-host, the one and only Casey Kasem, is a massive Jalen Naylor fan. She was telling people all day on Thursday, go get this guy. Start him this week. And she was right. 12 fantasy PPR points. So
I listened.
Oh, I know you did. Damn it, we nailed it. Speaking of Naylor, now Trey Tucker. This is what I explained to me.
Who?
Exactly.
I wrote that up in a thread on X this morning. I said, who? Reedy, who? People think we're probably nuts talking about Tolbert, right? But Trey Tucker played 81% of the snaps this week. He had 9 targets, 7 receptions, 96 yards and a touchdown. Okay, Jacoby Myers had a really good game too. Now, they were talking about making a QB switch, and if they do to Aiden O'Connell, that's who threw Trey Tucker this touchdown, was Aiden O'Connell. He has some chemistry with Tucker, the infamous backups type of chemistry, because that's who he plays pitch and catch with all the time. But Tucker played 81% of the snaps. He's on the field. I think the coaching staff is kind of making a change to some of the play calling because Jacoby Myers got heavily utilized as well with 9 targets also. So if they're going to 3 wide receiver sets and they're going to spread the ball around like this, these guys, he's going to become valuable and playable, right? The same with Jacoby Myers, who's out there in a lot of leagues now too. It's I'm not saying add him and plug him in, but this is one of the types of guys where I'll add him on teams, especially if I have a deep bench, because I want to be ahead of the curve. And I may not add him on the waivers tonight, but do it tomorrow morning. I mean, what's he rostered? Trey Tucker, 4%, right? He's available just about everywhere, only in the deepest rostered.
And dude, that 9 targets, if this offense really is making a shift, that could become he could become a consistent high volume wide receiver. Yes, Devontae Adams is in that offense, but also they've got to figure out what they have with some of these younger guys. He's 27, he's younger, but he's a younger vet on this team. So you've got to see what you have in these guys if you want to have any chance of, like they all do, they all want to win. So,
and if they're spreading the ball around like they did this week, because they have to do something, they had to switch it up. And they're not that good, so they're going to be behind a lot, right? So it's worth the flyer. That's
Yep.
where I'm at with that.
All right, before we get to our tight ends and defense special teams, a couple questions in the chat here. We've got Charlene Erickson tuning in asking, would you drop Corum for Roschon in redraft? Mike, I would not.
You would not in redraft?
I would not.
Because you feel if anything happens to Kyron, that Corum's still going to be the guy.
Well, they're the same player. So it's almost like
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't trust it. I just don't trust that Roschon's actually, because like you were saying earlier, as much as I like him and want to see what happens.
So I'm surprised Corum's on a team right now. You must have a deep bench.
Yeah.
If I needed someone to play, I still probably wouldn't be so eager for Roschon. Just because, as we talked about, we're looking at a 3-headed committee potentially there, where 1 week somebody gets you 15 to 20 points, and the next week he gets you nothing, and another guy gets 12 points. It's I'm actually avoiding that for the most part. Roschon's the guy you want after this week, it looks like, but I don't trust that coaching staff. I had a piece of this offense last year.
There goes the Alexa. All right, we've got another question here in the chat, Mike. Ryan wants to know, would you trade JMO or McLaurin for Pollard and Pollard? JMO or McLaurin and Pollard for Etienne? I mean, Etienne's getting volume in an offense that probably should stop throwing so much. Seems to be a common theme. But whether they're going to actually do that or not, I don't know. But he's still vet.
I would trade McLaurin and Pollard for him. Okay. If I was going to do the deal, I'd keep JMO. I'm sorry, I don't trust the Commanders to air it out to McLaurin all the time like they did last night. One play does not make a season.
That was fun.
One play.
But one play does not make a season.
Yeah.
100%. Camden Christensen wants to know, I start Stroud, Gibbs, Ramondre, Chase, Nico, McBride, and Etienne with Daniels, Eckler, Waddle, Cooper, Ferguson, and Akers. Just got offered Daniels for JMO and Bucky. Do we like it? It's 1 QB league. I don't think Daniels is going to surpass Stroud season long. More than likely. Still some growing pains there.
I would keep the depth and not care about the quarterback, to be fair, so much. I would probably want to keep the depth. You're going to need the depth as the season goes on.
Okay.
So I'm probably keeping JMO and Bucky.
All right. Now, if it was reversed and he was moving Daniels for JMO and Bucky, would you do that?
Yes, I would do that.
Okay. All right. Now, Macy wants to know, what do I do with Ayuk? I think at this point we're holding him.
You say Ayuk.
Ayuk. And then you hold him.
I would probably hold him. I think he's going to eventually come around. He is a primary piece of the offense, or at least he was right last season. I do think he's going to come around. I know he had a lot of targets last year. The hold in, or whatever the hell he was calling what he did, is just the impact on the play so far. And people have to understand that, they're not getting a lot of quality reps in the preseason anymore to try to preserve guys, which makes the first 3 games of the season almost the preseason, right? So we're just coming out of that now. I would hold.
Yep. He had 10 targets last week, Mike.
In double coverage, I mean, the whole time too. So it's not like he's bad. It was just tough going.
Yep, 5 catches still. I mean, yeah. That ends the questions. Let's get over to our tight ends real quick because, well, this is, as we know, about as ugly as it gets.
I've been calling it tight end roulette. Doesn't matter who you're playing.
Man.
They can get you 30 points or nothing. Doesn't matter which guy you play.
So we're going to roll through this very, very, very quickly. These are some guys we think you should look at streaming for week 4, and it's that simple. Not a whole lot else to say about it. Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. We've got Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. And this is a weird one, but I like it with Kittle out because I think we might have seen more of him had they had more time to game plan for it. Eric Saubert, the tight end in San Francisco.
Okay. I mean,
I'm just trying to go deep here.
Kasecki's somebody we've talked about a few times.
Yep.
He had 4 receptions, 47 yards, 13% target share this week. I think you're going to continue to see that kind of at least targets for him, right? So his floor's not that low. His ceiling's not super high either, but he's going to be somewhat steady. You know what you're going to get. There's not a lot of that right now other than Bowers at the tight end position. Like people are just crapping out left and right. And then having a big game like Cole Kmet, right? 10 receives. This week's Hunter Henry.
Well,
10 receptions, 97 yards, touchdown.
And he's trying to trick us because I'm looking at the Cole Kmet stats. And it's like, okay, well, he's not like second on the team in receiving right now.
Up and down. Up.
The same old story. It's the same old story with Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played him, by the way, in Scott Fishbowl. You know why?
Because you're smart.
Nope.
Tight end premium.
Because he's all I had.
Oh man, that's life, right? All right, I've had enough of tight ends already. It's really
blah 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 blah
blah blah. I do want to get to some comments we've got in the chat here. Quincy Davis saying, "Would you drop Minshew for Daniel Jones? Don't go that far yet. Not yet. That time may come."
If Minshew gets benched, and he might, maybe. But Danny Jones, if he has a really good matchup, you're going to see a decent game. You're not going to see a great game. At least Minshew's somewhat consistent, right? Like, you know what you're getting pretty much weekly.
Well, that's all we've talked about with Minshew. Yeah. He's Mr. Consistency, and that's why we like him. So, Fantasy Dog saying, number 8, just subscribe. Thank you so much, Fantasy Dog. We appreciate it. Guys, while you're here watching us go through these waiver wire claims, players we think you should pick up, and answering your questions, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. It'll help us bring you this content 5 days a week like we're doing now. It's just going to make me feel better about my sleepless nights planning all this stuff for you and creating the graphics. So please hit that subscribe button, guys. We would just appreciate it so much. Now we've got Ryan in the chat asking, sell high on Drake London, or is his production as of late a norm? I want to believe it's a norm, Mike, but I'm having a hard time trusting it because we've got Ray McLeod who's getting targets from Kirk Cousins. We've got Darnell Mooney.
Can you sell them? If you can find somebody to buy, I'd probably sell them.
I would.
They're spreading the ball around is where Nate was going with this. And I mean, Ray's they're scheming plays for him. Yeah. It's very interesting what they're doing.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Arthur Smith to the new Arthur Smith? Is that what's going on there?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe Kirk Cousins and Arthur Smith are related somehow. It's hard to say.
Maybe the coaching staff just knows more than we all do, which is usually the case. And they're like, these guys aren't as good as you think, so we have to scheme these other players up. It happens a lot.
It does. A lot. In Kill Harry, anybody? Camden Christensen saying, yes, I'm getting JMO and Bucky. Would you make the trade? Yes, we would make that trade. Absolutely. Jamie Prague saying, I puke. Don't be so hard on him, man. Come on. He says, you know how much I love Roschon. I'd rather have Corum for the upside, see what Kyron can do, and he's not that good. That, coming from Jamie, saying Corum over Roschon is surprising, slightly terrifying, but I don't know. It's something, I guess. Chris Robin, you know what's nuts? Reedy and I have been friends a few years. I don't know what he does for a living. I mean, hey, we get it. Uncle Ted said Trey Tucker is a must-add in NFBC. RGQ wanting to know, what do I do with Michael Pittman? Probably hold him.
Yeah, I mean, I would move him. He's not ever going to get what you think what you thought when you drafted him. That's not happening.
No, and damn it, Kevin Tompkins was right.
What, Kevin said that?
Oh, he said Michael Pittman was worthless. He didn't know why people were drafting him. So
I have 0 shares of Michael Pittman and 0 cares. I was all out, and I'm happy. Kevin, I agree with you.
I have a couple dynasty shares, but yeah. Jerry Bagshaw saying, hi all. Hello, Jerry. Thank you for always tuning in, man. We really do appreciate it. Now, Mike, let's hit up those defense special teams because, as I always say, you should not be rostering these long-term. These should be a streaming asset every single week if they're still in your league. This week, we've got 3 for you to stream. We'll start with the first one. We were on the same page with this. It was beautiful. Tennessee this week, not a good team, but they're playing the Tualus Dolphins. They're only 3% rostered right now. Skylar Thompson's probably going to turn the ball over a few times. That's points.
The Dolphins also give up the second most fantasy points to defenses. Tennessee gives up the most. But Seattle scored 13 last week. Buffalo scored 18. Buffalo's defense is really good. Jacksonville's defense, which isn't good, even got 4 points. With no Tua, I like Tennessee to get 10 points, right?
Easy. I think you could almost like pencil it in there. Now the Texans are our second one here. They're up against Jacksonville, who cannot score. We talked about this before the show. That's why I had them in my waiver article, was because Jacksonville, they're the 3rd worst scoring offense in the league, 13.3 points per game. They don't turn the ball over a ton, but Houston and the DeMeco Ryans defenses force turnovers. Texans are a floor play on defense this week. You've got to put one out there. You're looking to stream. They're only 30% rostered on ESPN. You could probably get them in your league. Excuse me. And this is a floor play. 8 to 10 points. You can almost bank it because Jacksonville isn't going to score.
Remember, floor play is sexy. You always start with the floor play. That's how you build up everything.
Exactly. See, Mike's spitting knowledge over here. Now we're going to recommend the other side of that Tennessee-Miami game, which is telling me deep down in my soul this is a game I'm not going to watch because it's not going to show up on Red Zone at all. But taking the Dolphins defense against Tennessee, who they are the worst turnover team in the league. So
they give up fantasy defenses average 18 points a game against them. It was 24 points for Chicago, 11 for New York, and 21 for Green Bay. We did recommend Green Bay and DFS last week, by the way. You'll probably see these as our DFS defenses too later on in the week. Just giving you a heads up. These things bleed into the next thing with stuff like this. But yeah, Miami's got a very good chance of getting past double-digit fantasy points against that horrible Tennessee offense.
Oh, yeah. I wrote them up in my Waiver Wire article on optimusfantasy.com. Go check it out, guys.
Go check it out.
Thing right over there. Quincy Davis in the chat, Mike, says, I have Debo and Juwan Jennings. Do I try to trade him now because his value is high, or should I keep them both?
I'd move Jennings. If you can get something really good for him,
I'd move him. If Debo gets hurt again, Ayuk's probably balling, and you can pivot somewhere else.
Somebody's going to be all caught up in their feelings on Jennings and want a piece of that game that already went by.
Yeah, right. All right, everyone. I want to say thank you, first of all, for tuning in and for dropping so many questions in the chat. One of my favorite parts of the show. Always love it. I want to remind everyone, Fridays, you can find Mike and I again, DFS Live at 4 p.m. Eastern or somewhere around there. But I have a more reliable laptop now, so I will be on time, at least I think. I'll just have to see. But check us out, 4 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, right here on the Optimus Fantasy Football YouTube channel. And then on Friday, after Mike and I go live, check me out with Matt Chester and guests at 6 p.m. Eastern for the Mailbag Show. You can send those questions to Optimus Fantasy, team at optimusfantasy.com, or find us on Twitter at Optimus Fantasy. Drop us a DM. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can do the same thing. We'll get those questions on air. On Sundays, guys, we are going to be back at it on Reddit. We had just shy of 1,000 questions last week, but all you beautiful Reddit people visited our site 2,000 times on Sunday. So thank you. I'm sorry if you hated my rankings. I've heard plenty about it from you guys. As Reddit does, right? As Reddit does. Guys, while you're here, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. Like I was saying earlier, it makes it so much easier for us to bring you as much content as possible. Let's get that subscriber count up. We appreciate it. We love having you guys here. And on Thursday, the Nate and Casey Show, the Optimus Fantasy Football flagship podcast. We will be live again at 4 p.m. Eastern with starts, sits, post waiver wire ads, some of our favorite bets for the weekend, and bold predictions. Mike, this has been a blast, man. Thank you for tuning in. Quincy Davis says, thank you all so much. I'm Nate Polvogt. For Mike Reedy, this has been the Optimus Fantasy Football Waiver Wire Show for Week 4. We will see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.